Hello and welcome to the Change Gang podcast with me, your host, Laura Ordile. I'm here to help you hold on to your sanity and your soul as you move through big change in your life. I'm here to guide you, inform you, and hopefully help you to triumph over trauma and the long list of symptoms that come along with it. This podcast series is to bring knowledge, share stories, and open up conversation around hope for those of you that suffer with the difficulties that present themselves in your life, from diagnosed or undiagnosed trauma. Labeled or not, I know you need help, and so do those that have graciously taken the time to have these conversations with me. So let's get to it. Welcome to the week, Change Gang, and we are continuing the series on triumphing over trauma. And I have the amazing Jelena Jovanovic. Did I say that right? I hope I said that right.
Almost there.
She is an amazing, amazing person. And do you call yourself a therapist or counselor? How do you term yourself?
Therapist mainly, and slash. I don't really like coach, but kind of guide. I like to guide people through their own story, using my own story, my own experience and everything that I learned while, try to professionally educate myself as well.
Yes, that's great. That was so funny because I just saw somebody post about that the other day. It's like, well, if you consider yourself a coach, what else besides coach do you call you? And I wrote down one of mine was guide. I said, well, I consider myself a mentor, sometimes a guide, and sometimes this or that. And it was funny, a little sassy, but I think it's important that we have our own experience to kind of carry along. That's why I say mentor a lot of times, is because it's a lot of things that I've been through myself that I'm hoping to help you step through and move through onto the other side. It's like you're doing the same thing for people. I think being a guide or a mentor, we often do use our own situations in life that we've been through to help other people to move through and guide them and mentor them to the other side of the issues that they're having. And it sounds like that's what you do too, right?
Absolutely. Although I have to say that at the beginning, I kind of made it a beginner's mistake, and I think I was projecting a lot, which is very, very important not to do, but to recognize the moments where you're about to do it, but open the space for the client to say whatever they've got to say. And then you lead them through the knowledge, not through projection. I think they're two very, very different things, can be confused easily.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Just to back up for just a moment, I do want to kind of tap into a little bit of your story so that we can share why you got into doing what you're doing and just a little bit of your journey. So you actually have a Serbian origin, but you've been living in London now for a long time, for a good while. And you also used to be a journalist, which I'm super fascinated about. So maybe tell us a little bit about your history and how did trauma or PTSD or CPTSD come into your life? How did that show up for you?
I think it was a huge combination of things. Going through, while I was on my journey to recovery, I uncovered a lot. Journalism was something that I was passionate about, but the dream was broken because I was a political journalist during the time Milosevic and the war in Serbia and ex-Yugoslavia. So that wasn't a pleasant experience. And I realized that there is no freedom in that job. You completely lose your voice. Or if you do, you are exposed to enormous amount of pressure not to be your own person. So in a sense, that was the beginning of realizing that you have trauma because they crash you and you keep crashing down.
Yeah.
What else? I had my younger sister died, age of 1 month old when I was 3 years old. And during that period, I hardly have any memories, but one picture was stuck in my mind where I was completely neglected. I was abandoned in my mind during that process. And because everyone was attending my mother and what was going on, I think I got loads of beliefs about myself from that particular scene, that I don't matter, always try to be perfect because they were talking about her like she was a perfect child and she died. And in my mind it was, okay, she is perfect. She was perfect and she died. Oh my God, what's left for me? I have to be better and better, better and better.
That's a lot on a little tiny person. Oh my goodness.
But you keep going and you don't know until one day you kind of get so stuck. If I tell you that I felt physical stuckness, it was like a rope or something was around my neck and pulling me back, constantly pulling me back. You can't move forward. You can't move forward. And I felt it. I was, I think, clinically depressed. I think that happened when I was made redundant and, off the path with my employer, which was Serbian government, and I was working in the embassy of Serbia. And I lost job at the age of 52. And I thought it was the end of the world. So no one would want me. No one, everything, every single trauma that I had during my life, that was the trigger. And I think the hell actually opened and everything was coming and wanted to get out and wouldn't leave me alone. And I felt really weak. I felt really suppressed and helpless and you name it. I was literally on the floor and they wanted to take me to the doctors. They wanted to give me tablets, and I was stubborn enough. That stubbornness, I think, and my ability to cry, because I cried and I cried and I cried and release the pressure basically while doing that I think saved me big time, actually helped a lot. I was stubborn enough to keep going and getting up and keep going and learning. And books, education, learnings, the number is countless. And I became officially a therapist, a hypnotherapist in 2015, RTT therapist in 2020 or 21, I can't even remember now. And then a protocol on PTSD and complex PTSD. But there is something that was, everything that I did brought me back to one point. And this is how I learned what is going on, at least with me, and how this is my experience. I'm sharing how I see trauma, emotional trauma at least, cluster of emotions, unprocessed emotions and unmet needs. And then I realized at some point that our relationship with our own emotions are completely unhealthy because they bring us pain and we just keep running away from that pain, and we essentially make it worse because the more you're trying to run away, the louder they become and either break you at the end or you start searching for answers. Luckily, I decided to search for answers. So I started seeing them as messengers and someone who is telling me that something is wrong. And then I realized that there is a reason for everything that we experience. Absolutely everything. It's not that we just become this way because, no, there is a reason for that. So going back to the reasons sometimes, and I was going back and digging, and I then realized bottomless pit. You can dig forever. And yes, you will have some sort of realizations, understanding, and sometimes understanding and realization did bring me relief, and I was kind of free. But in certain circumstances and situations, it didn't. I understood, but couldn't get rid of it, couldn't overcome it for some reason.
It's a lot where you find it, but you don't know what to do with it. It's like, yeah, I know it's there, but I don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And then it was the moment when I actually decided that it's the emotion that I cannot deal with. And whenever I want to do something, the emotion is on my way, nothing else. Just the resistance, the pain inside of me, that has its origin, right? And the biggest teacher, I think, I knew that on some level, it was kind of instinctive level, but it fully, I think, came into my consciousness last year when I was facing my father's death. And while he's in hospital dying, and we were not even able to see him, it was still COVID. And then he died alone. We didn't see him for a month before he died. And I had to go and identify his body. And I think that was the moment when I realized there is no hiding. There is no place to hide here. You have to do it. You have to go through that. But if you're going to go through that, you really need to do it with dignity. You are not going to fall apart here. And coming with all my emotions, all the weaknesses that I felt in my body, I think what happened was that awareness kicked in.
Yes, absolutely.
That I put all what I felt, all what I needed to do under one umbrella. And, all that ego parts, all that parts that they are fighting inside of us, they came together under the umbrella of awareness. I went through it. And then again, on the day of his funeral, again, you have to do it. There is no, you can't go left, right. You can't avoid that. It's the matter how you're going to do it. That actually, I didn't, you're aware and you know what that is. But life brings you different situations that you were never facing before. And you always have to go through the same process over and over and over again, understanding that umbrella will put you back in wholeness and the different parts of you will make their peace under that umbrella. It's what I aim to pass to my clients.
I think awareness is the key to everything. I think it's such a huge thing because until you're aware of something, it's just not a part of your life. But that doesn't mean it's not trying to come into your awareness through whatever means possible. And sometimes those are good means and sometimes those are difficult ones. But once you become aware and have a simple acknowledgement of something, oh, okay, that's there. Let me receive that. Let me do whatever with it. And oftentimes, especially with emotions, and I talk to people all the time about this, because it's not that you have to sit and dwell in the emotions to feel them in order to allow it to process. Oftentimes, it is that simple awareness and acknowledgement, and then it just kind of comes and flows through and processes and leaves you alone. Will it come back? Possibly. But again, the awareness comes, it flows through, and it goes on its way. But I often compare it to a little puppy that will come up. You can use the same thing as like with one of the ego parts, but it will come and try to get your attention and try to get your attention and try to get your attention. And if you're not giving it attention, it's probably going to go off and chew up your shoes or your furniture. It's going to cause problems. And once you start giving it that attention, sometimes it's just that simple little pat, that simple little, I see you, I know you're here. And then it goes and lays down and it's good and happy. It's what we need to do so often. And we just think it's so much harder and it's so much simpler than we often tap into. It's exactly what you're talking about.
It's about identifying with that pain. When you do that, it becomes bigger and stronger. And that is, I think, what makes it hard. And thinking that this is it, that we are it, and bringing it over and over into day to day, living, is kind of creates helplessness. We can't do anything about it because we accept that identity of the pain that we're having.
That's so true. And I think that's one thing when I work with people too, that it's helping them find that core of themselves that already is okay, because it is. There is a part of you that no matter what's going on around you, you are already okay. And it's just a matter of kind of finding that part and then being the observer of the rest, being the observer and seeing and acknowledging it is a difficult day. It is hard that my father's dying. It is difficult that I have to go through this, but I'm still actually okay. And it's like such an amazing secret that shouldn't be a secret.
When you find yourself on the other side, you wonder, how come that people do not function like that? Is it for real? Sometimes when I want and need to say this to my client who is in real dire straits, I feel bad because, so yeah, it's easy for you to say because you're not here. I know I was there, but offering such a simple solution to what seems to be a huge problem is not easy to accept.
That's often what happens with hypnotherapy too, I think, is that it sounds so simple, especially with like the PTSD protocol, the beat retreat protocol that we talk about so often. 6 to 7 weeks most of the time, and people can clear so many things and come to a place of feeling good and healthy and strong. And that seems like snake oil or a salesman trying to give you that, but yet we watch it happen time and time and time again. And so it's almost too easy for people when they hear that. It's like, it can't be that simple. It can't be that easy. Yet it is. Before you found your way into this particular, the PTSD protocol that I just mentioned, you obviously stepped into hypnotherapy in other ways at a certain point. What led you there? What led you to stepping into hypnotherapy?
In 2012, 13, when I got lost, as I mentioned, completely and got stuck. I was smoking and I was coughing and my family was going, okay, this needs to stop. And I didn't care really at that point, because when you're depressed, you just don't think about something like that in
Right.
terms, this is dangerous. So you really don't care. And my husband heard about hypnotherapy and hypnotherapists, and they said to me, my family, children and husband said, okay, you are going. I said, okay, I don't care. So I went, and she was asking me questions, and I was like completely non-resistant to that idea. I went with no expectation. I just went whatever and came out. It was raining. It was such a miserable day. I couldn't wait to come back home, and I put the kettle on, and I was rolling cigarettes at the time. So I did, and reached to take that cigarette, and found my hand hanging in the air, literally 2 hours later.
Oh my
I
gosh.
said, what is going on? And I said, okay, never mind. So I went with my day, and the other day, and a week, and a month. And I think 6 months later, I remembered she saying something like, as the time goes, you will know, you will have a kind of knowledge that you were a smoker, but you could not relate to that. And that's exactly what happened. I could not relate with me being a smoker, although I had images in my head. And, I started being curious about that. And eventually in 2015, I studied it. I can't say that I understood it completely back then. So that's why I did more and more and learn more and more education. And I would occasionally do until I felt firmly, the ground to be able to help people the same way. That's the story about hypnotherapy.
Then once you started with hypnotherapy, I think like so many of us, you started to kind of, it's just like awareness. Here comes the awareness again. When you become aware of something, it opens the door to more awareness, or to the seeking of more awareness, because it steps in and it's something that is like, oh yeah, this is great. And then you open that door and it's like going into this huge field where all this stuff is out there and you can look at and see it. And then you step in one direction and you head in that, and another huge field opens up and you're looking at that, and it just continues down the line, which is, I think, so cool in our universe that happens. You stepped into hypnotherapy. What opened up for you at that point? What expanded?
You were saying that, and my mind was going, yeah, exactly. I was digging and digging more problems constantly. And I opened the door to digging, and then you open the door with awareness, and it's just the opposite ends. You can go down that way or you can go this way. And when I think about it, because that was a bottomless pit, this one, there is no end to what you can learn and how many doors you will open with this. If you are aware enough, and if you're patient enough, and if you live your life through the day, and whatever is in front of you, you deal with that the best way you can, and you keep just living. And it's something completely different. Sometimes I'm lost for words, to be honest, when I go back and remember where I was, where I am only 2 years ago. Huge.
And I think that too, I'm wondering if you found too that moving into hypnotherapy, one of the things there, and even especially now, I mean, it's again, the doors have continued to open in the way that this works, but it's seeing how much quicker, easier, and more complete hypnotherapy goes in and makes the changes. I mean, it goes to the driver of the bus and says, here's where we're going to make changes. Let's do it. And by doing that, it comes so much quicker, so much easier, in such a better way than without it. And I never say that you're not going to get where you want to be outside of using it, because you might get to someplace better than where you are. However, you're not going to get to that total reset, that total clearing that you can do by going to the subconscious. Do you find that with your own life and with the people that you work with?
Absolutely. Let's go back to my smoking story. 2 hours. including travel time. I mean, that was enough. And I know so many people who struggle with smoking and they want to stop, they can't stop, they stop and they start years. And I don't think that it continue, they'll never do. But also, I said that I was resistance free when I went there. So I didn't have that opposing part that wouldn't allow it to happen.
Right.
And talking about PTSD protocol, and I had a breakthrough when I first experienced it. And I have clients, they had a breakthrough in session 2. I have clients that didn't move at all after the whole protocol. I was thinking, what's going on? I think the breakthroughs are actually results of either not having a resistance towards, so being open in a sense to what is going to happen, or they are this close. They've been doing something and they have the cluster of things that led to that particular event, and it was just a push that they need to go over the fence. Some of them are not close. Having said that, they don't experience the breakthrough, but whatever they experience through the hypnosis is going to make them ready for the next step and for the next step. That's a step on their journey, not that particular session. It's not a breakthrough session, but it's getting ready for the next step. So it cannot be without results. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yes. There is going to be results.
One or the other way. Yes.
Even if it's not in that first session, it might take until the last session. It might take an extra session or two. A lot of people get the results even before those 6 sessions or between the 6th, 7th session. They'll get it earlier in, like 3. You said the second one was so fascinating for you. You know, a lot of people at the 3rd or 4th session will have that breakthrough. Sometimes they're aware of why and sometimes they're not, which is a whole nother conversation. But thank you so much for sharing your story about that journey from that dark spot for you into coming back out into the lightness and being able to help the people that you help now. And I hope that you'll have more of a conversation with me because I've got more stuff I want to dig into with you, because I think the emotions and those things that we talked about a little bit are so important in how we move forward in life. And that simple awareness, like you said, it can be simple. And oftentimes that's all it is that awareness. And simply by being acknowledged in that point, things will clear and go away. It's like, I just wanted to be acknowledged, and they clear. Just like that little puppy. They just wanted attention, and now they can go away. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me, Jelena. Can you please tell people real quick, and of course I'll have it in the show notes, but where they can find you, where they can connect with you?
My website is going live within 10 days. My business is called Intrinsic Therapist. Instagram Intrinsic Therapy and Facebook page related to that name.
It'll be under Intrinsic Therapy for your website as well?
Yes.
So by the time this comes out, that should be all set up and ready to go for people so they can come find her and have those wonderful conversations with you and reach out to you for help. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a real pleasure.
All right, Change Gang. I hope that you go into the week and have a wonderful one and that you meet me right here, same time next week. I hope today's episode was interesting and helpful to you in some way. If so, find someone to share it with. Maybe it will help them too. If you'd like to know more about anything discussed here today, you can find all the places to connect with me and the guest speakers in the show notes. Or go to lauraordile.com, LauraOrdile.com, and you can reach out to me there. Until next time, ask when you need help, be kind to yourself, and have a happy day.